I wanted to ask you about ideas. As two authors that have several series, I know we're always looking to the next book in a series, possibly the next Apocalypticon, the next maybe Nakua, whatever. I don't know what you have plans for some of those series, but I've always got series I'm working on too. So I'm wondering, do you ever sit down and take time to generate a new idea? Or are you always working on something and something kind of strikes you and it goes into the notebook or it goes into the file to hit next? Or do you go and sit and just think, I'm going to come up with something completely new? I just want to think of an idea. I just want to do something different. I just want to sit and devote time to having an idea.
It's a great question that I'm not entirely sure how to answer well, but I'll share some thoughts. So first of all, I find that I don't ever sit down thinking like, you know what, I want to work on something new, or at least I haven't. I've been thinking that, and we can get to that later. But it's for me, the ideas just come, and we'll probably do an episode about this at some point. Like, where do new ideas come from, or where do you generate that? For me, they just kind of happen, and when they happen, I'm like, I want to write that. But there is that pressure of like, do I start this new thing, or do I keep working on these series? And what I have found myself in, I'm in this trap now where I wrote Apocalypticon. That was my first novel, and it was not meant to be a series. It was done, and then I went on to the next idea, which I was like, this could be a series, and I went to the next one. That was could be, and like I keep thinking of these ideas, and I think, well, I'll take a break from this series to write this next idea, but then that idea becomes a series, and so the more I think I'll work on new ideas, the more series I have to go back to. And then Apocalypticon became a series, partly because of Stephen Luna, our mutual friend and my editor. And I'm glad it did, but also at the same time, like, God, if I had not committed to that as a series, I could do so much other work. And I do have a lot of new ideas and fun ideas that I want to tackle. And there is this kind of struggle of, do I focus on that or do I work on the series? And one of the things I'm focusing on now is closing out my Apocalypticon series. And everyone I've talked to so far, readers, my editor, other kind of beta readers, are all like, don't end it with 5. Just say like 5 is kind of the cap for right now. But for me, it feels actually very important to like put a very firm door and close that door on 5, partly because I have to do other things. I have so many ideas I want to get to. I will not get to them if I keep writing Apocalypticon. And that's a hard decision because Apocalypticon is my best seller. And so I am capping my best-selling series at 5 books. If I wrote that for eternity, people would buy them. And I know that. And that's probably the better business decision. But at this point, I'm just like, I have to move on because my brain will explode with new ideas if I don't move on. And I can't keep writing new ideas that become their own series because that's a dangerous spiral. So for Apocalypticon, I'm about to publish the 4th book in the series. I just outlined recently the 5th book, and it will be the end. And there are going to be very firm buttons on that end. Doesn't mean I can't go back to that world, but that is going to be a done series. Not to give any spoilers, but that it's going to be over because I have to go to other things, and I have to now. And now the other things I have to go back to are mostly series that I wrote.
Other sequels.
That I thought like this would be a one-off that I would write to get away from the series. So it's a good problem to have, but it also is a problem that I have.
Yeah, and as a fan, as much as a friend, I'm excited. There's more Anomaly Flats possibly in the future too. So,
and Nakua is my favorite thing I've ever written. Like, I can't wait to get back to that. Anomaly Flats is like a whole universe. Like, of course, I want to get back to that. Like, my 5-year-old now, we read Mabel Gray with her at bedtime. She's beating down my door to write the next Mabel Gray, which is very long in coming. And she's also actually throwing out genuinely very good ideas about that story, and I'm taking notes. And
that is absolutely one of my favorite too. That always was. So I'm glad to hear that
there's so much to
live
do.
on.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I can kind of see. I start to see how Stephen King's whole universe became tied together. with
Yeah.
this because I've got an idea right now that it's not letting me go. I'm I'm really excited about it. I'm about to put the finishing touches in the most recent Shattered Alliance book. But I have another idea that I'm like, it's a brand new series, which is a dumb financial move to go for, but I can't not do it. But I'm thinking it kind of ties into one of my other series, and I think it's almost like the excuse to go, no, it's related to this, so I'm really still working on that, right? Like it's kind of, and I can start to see how if you have a big universe of I don't know how many books King's written now, but like if they're all kind of tied together through Derry or Castle Rock or whatever, or
Right.
the Tower or however it works, it kind of feels like you're still doing the smart thing, but you're also getting to play with new ideas without stepping away from what readers want too.
It's an interesting way to think about it because I will say not for those reasons, but for my own personal enjoyment, I have actually connected all of my books into the Clayton Smith universe very subtly. So like if you read Nanakua, there's one very small mention of a character from Apocalypticon. And if you read Post Apocalypticon, the second book, you'll see there's a backpack that was in Anomaly Flats. And I've connected all these things in very small ways just because I like the idea of like leaving little breadcrumbs for my readers. But that is an interesting way to think about that. Like because they're all connected in some way, you're right. When I work on the next Anomaly Flats, that's part of the Apocalypticon universe. It's part of the same thing. And
Yeah,
I've never
it's
thought of it
still
that way. That's interesting.
I'm still working hard on doing writing the things I'm supposed to be writing, but I'm getting to play with a new idea. But yeah, I've had a couple lately where it's just like I'm not letting this one go. So what I'm doing is I'm in the morning I'm working on Shattered Alliance, and then in the evening I'm kind of outlining and playing with these new ideas. I've got a couple that are very distinct from what one is very different from anything I've ever done, and I'm really having fun with the idea of that one. Only, I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is so very different from what I've done.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's and that almost leads me to another question too. We've talked about is like, what is it about a new idea that just like I'm very excited to finish Shattered Alliance 4, and it's I've got the rough draft done. I'm going through putting the finishing touches. I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun with it. It's one of my favorites so far. But a new idea is more exciting than that. Why? Why can't I resist playing with something else?
I think the idea, I think it's just because it's a new idea. And like, especially once you get to the kind of the flow of writing a series, you're so used to playing in the same world and you're telling a great story and it's great. Like, post-apocalyptic magic warriors, like you've been telling that story for a long time and you're very good at it and it's a great story and I hope it continues forever selfishly, but you're in this kind of box in a sense, in a very fun, wonderful box. But as we got into this game because we have to write, right? Like no one becomes like an indie author because they're like, I'm going to get rich. So it's because we have to tell stories, and there's a limit to, I think, to how much kind of horizontal story you can tell. Eventually,
Mm,
you have to get vertical, right? You have to like, here's my next story. Here's how I'm stretching my muscles, and here's how I'm keeping myself interested and creative. And it's the same reason why you'll watch apocalyptic movies, you'll watch, documentaries on terrible historical events, you'll watch comedies that are so stupid. Like, I watched Death of a Unicorn in the theater. It was the first movie I've seen in the theater in years because I have young kids and it's hard. And that's when I wanted because it was totally mindless and it delivered 100%. It was
good.
totally mindless, right? And like it was just like you take in media, entertainment media that is so different because it fulfills different needs. I think it makes sense that we have to also put out entertainment media that is different because it fills different needs for us as creators.
I think that's absolutely right. And that's kind of what I started with the question with are you kind of inspired by things and just kind of like because we're working on so many things already, a lot of ideas form and then you go, oh, I'll put that down and think about that later. One of the things I find I need to do is I need to sit down and I love the creative process. Even before I did this, I was in advertising on the creative side. Um, just making things up out of nothing is just ridiculously, stupidly addictive to me.
Yeah.
So, and the problem is the notebooks get thicker and the ideas to get to get more and more. But I will sit down and just say, okay, let's think of something fun to do. Let's think of something different. And I think that explains a lot why I can't focus on even just writing. I've got a lot of other silly things, and even in marketing the books that need to think of a new idea is kind of scratched. Um, because it's because that's problem solving very much. Like I need an ad that does this. I need that. How do I get something fun with this video, with this blog post, whatever. I think a lot of that's scratch, but every now and then it's just like you have to dig in and get down to, I'm just going to create something out of nothing and see where that goes. And it's going to be something very different from, like you say, like you've been in that horizontal field of working in this universe or that universe that you've created. I want to be something very, very distinct. And then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, this is very different than anything I've written. And then I'll somehow put a descendant of Damien Stockwell in there. So
Yeah.
my feeling is very much, if people are not going to like the Damien Stockwell books, they will like his great grandson. They will like his some relative somewhere down the chain.
Yeah. Well, and part of this, is, my book, so like I think that my collection of work is pretty, in to use the analogy I used earlier, vertical, right? Like it's very. I have a lot of different kinds of books, and they make sense together. But it's like there's some horror, there's some sci-fi, there's some post-apocalyptic, there's some children's book, there's some, so it's all a little different because my interest is there. It does become this sort of, I don't know, trap is not the right word, but it becomes hard to break out of what you're writing when you have fans who are not only buying the books you're writing in a series, but they're also asking you like, when's the next book coming out? Because they're so excited. And that's what an honor to have people tell you like, I can't wait for your next book.
Mm-mm.
That's incredible, right? So that's part of it, but also, it's it's a risk to write something different. And several years back, I decided to write this kind of change my style up and write a very kind of like boom, 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 kind of like just write a fun book that would be, easy for me to write like within a few weeks and publish, and then write the sequel in a few weeks and publish, and write a sequel in a few weeks and publish. And that was the Dark Matter series, Demon Zero and Scorched Earth and Shadow Realm. And when I wrote those, I felt like, well, this is different from what I have written before. So I'm going to publish them under a pen name because they're so different from what I've written and the style is so different. Like, I don't necessarily want to confuse my brand, quote unquote, with that. So I wrote a pen name. And then my readers who know my work and who are, knew that I had written these things under a pen name, they read it and they're like, this is very clearly your writing and they're great stories. Like, why did you do a pen name? And so it was really interesting. Like, it was a kind of a light bulb moment for me. It's like, to me, it feels different, but to them, it doesn't. Like, I can change genre, but it's still me writing it. It's still my style of writing, no matter what genre I'm writing in. Even,
Yeah.
most of my stuff is, like you and I write, in some ways very similar works, right? Like some dark humor and kind of, crazy blown up stories that are funny and terrible. But then like even writing like,
What the fuck's wrong with us?
boy, that's a whole series of episodes.
That's another question.
Like even writing straight horror, people were like, yeah, this is you. And like, I don't see that, but they do, because of course, like it's me doing it. Right. So no matter what I write, no matter like what genre or whatever, the readers are smarter than I gave them credit for. So I think like maybe sometimes we shackle ourselves a little bit too much to what is known. And maybe it's actually not only okay, but maybe like exciting for readers for us to branch out and explore new worlds. So I think it's okay to chase those down sometimes.
I sure hope so. Guess I'm getting the itch to do something very different again. So, but I think we have both done that over the years too. Like you say, it's our lack of ability to focus as much as anything that and we're not able to resist the shiny new idea.
I am learning in my older years. I genuinely may have ADHD that's gone undiagnosed my entire life, but I think it's working for me in some ways, so I'm okay with it.
You've harnessed that horse. Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, I ask these questions and we talk about it, and I'm happy to feel at the end that I'm not alone in my madness. So it's great.
There's a reason why you and I end up very accidentally writing very similar scenes in our books. So,
Yeah. Well, we will definitely talk about ideas in the future too. I want to talk about our process, our creative process, and everything. We'll probably find that's very similar as well. But there's a lot to talk about when it comes to idea generation, and even knowing what ideas to chase and what ideas to let go.
yeah.